conversations on current affairs, just key issues going on in the country. My name is Nenwaringe Mazaka, and once again I have amazing guests with me in the studio. But before I introduce the guest I have with me, and before we begin the discussion for today, we'll just quickly take a look at our very first discussion, which the report would usher us in. So let's just quickly watch this report, and when we get back, the discussion begins. Don't go anywhere.
Nigerians have expressed their displeasure about the recent 50% increase in the tariff of telecommunication in the country. It was shocking to many Nigerians when the news filtered to the public space, and they wondered why the unending increases in virtually all utility services in the country, more so when the people are facing economic hardship. In lieu of the prevailing harsh economic situation of the country, the people charged the government to look for a way to give support to cushion the economic situation by subsidizing some of the important essential services, and then when the economy improves.
Have you back. So I have with me in the studio, I have Mr. Sunday Dibashi, who is an editor of a national daily newspaper. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for the privilege to be here.
Yes, and I have Mr. Steve Ayer, who is the financial secretary of GPAN, which is the Guild of Public Affairs Analysts. Thank you so much for being me in the studio.
Happy New Year, and thank you for having me around.
Yes, Happy New Year to you as well. All right, so as we've seen in the report, I mean, I think that is one event that, you know, has been over and over. Everyone is talking about it. The NLC had come up, you know, different group, Nigerians after it. The telecommunication tariff hike, the 50% tariff hike that the NCC had come up to announce. And they gave reasons, and one of the reasons was the rising operational cost, you know, in operation and all of that. Now, gentlemen in the studio, please, let's, of course, that's the reason why we're here, to have the discussion. Looking at the reasons the telecommunication companies have given, and looking at the current situation we are in right now, because, I mean, it looks as though someone already has an injury and you're, you know, opening up another injury somewhere else. Exactly. So, but again, looking at their reasons, you know, for bringing this up, would you say their reasons, you know, justifies this tariff hike, and at this time? Probably start with Mr. Sunday.
Let's go with Steve.
Okay, whoever wants to start first.
If you want to be realistic, yes,
Okay.
it does. These companies are not government owned. These companies are privately owned. They are private investors who have brought in their money to invest in Nigeria. And if you want to underline the basics, you know that not even an inch of any communication equipment is being produced here in Nigeria. So they basically import everything that we use, from telephones to fiber optic wires to whatever. Everything is imported. So which means that these guys are the ones playing a dollar space. That's number one. Number two, right from the beginning of their intervention, that was before NITEL. If you remember, NITEL was basically in comatose when Obasanjo invited these guys in. So when they came, they did not even inherit anything. In fact, even the company that bought over NITEL, at the end of the day, had to abandon everything and has gone, because the company couldn't do anything to carry.
They couldn't survive.
They couldn't survive. So at the end of the day, guys were not given any sort of tax incentives. These guys were not given anything. They were just shown a playing field, go and play with it, may the Lord help you. And these guys stuck it out, doggedly fought it out, and were able to establish, do business. Number three, if you look very well around Nigeria today, you see that these guys are basically around about the only known multinational organizations that I can say government can go and knock at their door by 12 midnight and say, oh boy, you have not paid your taxes. Can you please pay us your taxes? Then those are the basic line things. Then by the time you start digging out, you start discovering that, okay, basic infrastructure such as power, good roads, security are not there. They are providing their own security, they are providing their own marks, they have to. So a lot of things makes operation of these telecommunication companies or services very difficult. So there must be a way for them to be able to recoup part of their money so that they can at least feel happy that, okay, they are doing something. So we just cannot avoid it.
Okay. So Sunday, do you agree
I think
their reasons is justifiable?
Yeah, it's just sort of justification. Let's put a question mark there.
Okay.
But the reasons, are there facts? You know, do they reflect economic realities? Yes. You know, because when you move around the cities or move around the country, you'll find that each mosque owned by any of these telecom is being supplied electricity using one lister generator. You know, being for, you know, with diesel. Okay? and that is how you see them everywhere you go about. Then you now think of charges to procure land and all that. So I will agree that the cost of production, or producing a service, is high. It's getting high. So because of that, they have reasons to think of increasing the cost of the tariff. But when you also ask the question, now these generators run on diesel. Yeah. Now, diesel has been, the cost have been high over the years, not today.
Not today.
All right? Diesel never caused crisis in the fuel, environment, situation in terms of consumption. They said petrol. It's only petrol, when you have a rapid increase, you will feel the impact immediately. You have a decline, you feel the impact. But diesel has been a little stable. So let's take from what we are saying. If we not take the cost of production from that aspect, they would have incurred so much cost. The difference will be marginal, which means that the increment they are talking about ought not to be as high as they are claiming. Okay. They ought to consider marginal increase of tariff, gradually until they get to that point. Not the one you just have to jump from existing price to 100% or 50%. So they need to review the percentage. That is what. Okay. For NCC, NCC to come and now begin to, they are the ones giving the reasons. Yeah. It's a failure of governance. The Nigerian government over the years have been making cost of business, the cost of doing business so expensive, simply because the government wants the revenue at all costs. Revenue that they cannot even justify the use. You get it? Yeah. Well, this is the issue. The problem is not much with the telecoms, but with the government that creates that environment that is hostile to investment, that is hostile to business. And at the end, the Nigerian citizens are the victims. Because whichever way you go, the government will generate revenue, so the elite will be comfortable at all times. The investors also get comfort to the detriment of millions of Nigerian citizens. So the suffering Nigerians will always be the victim. They will be at the receiving end at all times. So these are issues. I think these are areas because you look at the consequences. They've increased. And I will also commend the telecom guys for transparency. Because once they want to increase, they'll make it public. Yeah. Unlike the discos that will go on secret increase of electricity tariff until you get to a point that will say, oh, well, maybe it's about to leak. They will not say, oh, we are not. And they will even begin people, Nigerians, and say, oh, we are increasing on so ban Z, ban T, and all that. And at the end of the day, they will now say, okay, the red bars are now banned, but because they have increased, so they want everybody to be there. Because they couldn't call to increase directly, they will begin to use all commoners of jargon. So I think there's a little bit of transparency, and that is commendable on the part of the telecom operators. So Nigerians can know the direction they are going, but the consequences is what citizens cannot continue to bear. Citizens cannot continue to.
All right. So looking at the 50% hike, some people are feeling or suggesting that probably it should be at least maybe 10, 15.
The thing is that, in as much as I would have loved it to no more than 10, 15, but the field where these guys are playing at makes it virtually impossible to be able to deliver at 15. I am not speaking for the telecommunication companies who they have not given me any money.
You're trying to be in their shoes.
But I'm trying to be in their shoes. I don't have any relationship with anybody. Okay. I don't have any. So I need to clear it out so that somebody will not sit down there and say, hey, you get me? Because, for example, let's be realistic, just like he said. Government had to quickly approve this because government is looking at the tax benefits that will come in. We are not only talking about tax. Government is going to impose some tariff on these guys, particularly those that are going to import fiber optic wires and all those things. And mind you, part of the reason that makes the telecommunication feel very, very expensive is some of them had to lay fiber optic wires across the Atlantic Ocean into Europe to be able to get proper feeder connections. So, some people will sit down in their houses and call America and call Canada and discover that the thing goes within seconds. You don't know that, look, billions have passed the ocean. And all those cables needed to be protected and all those things. These guys are playing within a dollar space that the federal government is not giving them any incentives. I thought probably the government would have said, okay, there are some industries that when they need money, you get me? Let's say, for example, the manufacturing and the telecommunication industry, when they need dollar exchange, we will have to come down and give them some kind of rebate so that they can be able to acquire dollars at a cheaper rate. But that is not happening. Rather, our Nigerian government prefers to do it to religion. We are going on a pilgrimage, then you get dollar rebate. But what is supposed to be economical does not get dollar rebate. So it means as if we are all preparing to go to heaven and face hell here in Nigeria. That's the truth. Because when you meet government carrying religion on itself much more than carrying developmental policies, what else do you need? That's the reason why a lot of major companies have left this country, because they are finding it difficult to marry the situation. We can't get dollars easily to do our business, and yet you expect us to pay tax. You expect us to create community development policies and programs to help you develop the economy. And yet what will help us stand is completely missing. So how do we stand? So it is impossible to actually work with just 50% or 10%. But actually I would have loved that.
Okay, but how do we, I mean, the NLC had, come out to, react to the whole issue, and some talks about protests, all came up on it. But how do we get out of this? Or are we accepting the 50% and we move on? Although, like we've established here, it's not completely the fault of the telecommunication companies, right? But I mean, this is a time where Nigerians are struggling to eat, and this is a time where we're trying to be digital, and then now data and all of that is now becoming more expensive. So how do we get out of this? Do you see us? I don't know. But I'm sure you get what I'm trying to say.
I think it's a complicated issue in this circumstance. All right? Because when you also go and look into the books of these telecom companies, it does not the books may not show that encountering loss. Okay. They are still declaring profit. They are still declaring dividends. All right? Now, if you also look at their activities, their CSR, corporate social responsibilities, you see that they are still pumping money into that section. Yes. So they still have money because they have this an industry have millions of subscribers. So it's not like they are now having no. There's not because when they will have problems, when subscribers begin to decline, all right, that is when it begins to affect the margin of profit and the money they are making. But as long as they are maintaining that subscription level in millions, they should also consider the capacity of the subscribers also to have access to their facilities. It's not like when you have a senator who can run his telephone line for 2-3 hours without stop. You take it as you say, oh, there's growth in that sector. No, and this is where NBS, the National Bureau of Statistics, should be also be cautious in rolling out figures to say this is what the economic performance in Nigeria. Because those figures they are giving out, they do not reflect realities. And that is why you see that some sectors are coming out and say, okay, oh, this is what we're encountering, and they now work with that. Those figures are deceptive. So, in all ramifications, they need to rework the entire system. If the NLC is coming, I'm not suggesting 15%, but I think 50% is too high. Right? Yeah, I think it's too high. Because they have to make marginal increase of the tariff so that people can now adjust to it with time. Not a sudden one that you will not get food out of the table of many people and other. Because look at when they started this negotiation. They were threatening that if the government did not approve the increase, that they were going to tamper with the services.
Which I think they did eventually.
That they were going to tamper with the services. you know, and this is something that almost every Nigerian, the majority of Nigerians are not relying on now.
Yeah. Since,
well, government has failed in other sectors, this is the working sector and all that. So they should also look at how the human face to their decision making, such that they would not consider the citizens, you know, to whatever decision they are making. Now, electricity tariff is high. The cost of petrol is high. So what is not high in Nigeria? And everything is just about the government. They must have to make adjustments.
I think if I may add something there.
Okay.
In as much as Mr. Sunday is calling for adjustment because he strongly believes that the communication companies are making profit. I agree that they are making profit. But I also need you to go and look at their relationship with some of their banks. I think if you look at their relationship with some of their banks, you'll be able to better appreciate how they've been able to manage whatever meager profit that they've been able to get at the end of the day. Like I said, the cost of doing business in Nigeria is so terrible. So terrible that multinationals are barely struggling to survive. So you find out that some of them are owing their banks. Some of them have gone into overdraft to the point that they are paying this one, and the banks are looking at their books and saying, okay, I think we can write this off as bad loan. We can. The truth of the matter is that we don't have a people-minded government in Nigeria. From whatever angle you want to look at it, the level of governance in Nigeria is at its lowest level ever. So it's not that government is thinking of the people. It's not that the government is thinking of doing anything. Nobody does anything. You find yourself in God's position, make sure you make as much as possible and get away. Because if you if you don't, at the end of the day, you really want to cry. And if you do, if you step on toes, well, those toes will grow, eventually grow bigger, and they may want to fight you back. That's your problem. It's unfair, really, to the generality of people. But that's where you find out yourself in.
Yeah, but even in that, their relationship with the bank, they still have a way of surviving.
So yes, even at that, they still have a way of surviving. And I can assure you that those that are tired of fighting this war, what they will simply do is that they will sell and go away. Etisalat sold and left. Airtel, EcoBank sold and left. So we already have records.
Econet, you mean?
Yeah, Econet. Yes. We already have records that two of those telecommunication companies that came in and did very well sold and left. I remembered very well when Etisalat rolled into Nigeria. The first thing they did was to come up with an advert that